Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Blocknative's first community call. My name is Laurence Delille, and I am the head of product marketing at Blocknative. And I've been in the crypto ecosystem for 5 years now, working on layer ones, wallets, and dApps. And I'm honestly really excited to bring you to the Blocknative community call, where our aim is to talk about real-time relevant topics in the Ethereum ecosystem. At Blocknative, we really strive to build an unopinionated, credible, neutral, real-time infrastructure for Web3. And we've been operating with that mindset for the last 4 years by allowing users to see into the pre-chain layer. And today, we've taken that infrastructure and we're really focused on using that for block building to enable the conditions for a more decentralized and fair Ethereum. With that being said, I'd like to introduce our guest for our community call today, Sajida Zouare. Sajida is the product manager for Blocknative's block building infrastructure, and she's been in the crypto space for 7 years now and contributed to the merge of Ethereum as the product lead for Besu at Consensus, which is an execution client of Ethereum. Recently, she wrote us on Is the Block Building Market Doomed to Monopoly? And we are really excited to dive into that topic. Welcome, Sajida.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks so much for being on our community call. Let's dive into a bit about what we've been up to at Blocknative. So Sajida, you and I were talking about the intentional product direction we've taken at Blocknative, and I really wanted to share that a bit more with our listeners. So the merge occurred September 15th, and at that time, Blocknative entered into the block building world with two and then quickly three pieces of infrastructure. So first we had our relay, the Blocknative relay, our own block builder, and then shortly thereafter, our own open source relay code, which is called Dreamboat. As of today, let me check MEV boost really quickly. We have had number of blocks is 4,977, and our total ETH value in those blocks was 486.372 ETH, which is really exciting. Now, what I think is really interesting is the approach we've taken, and we've been talking about this, Sajida and I. Unlike other block builders, we've really prioritized excellence with non-MEVs. We actually don't accept bundles at this time, yet we're still winning blocks, which could come to a surprise for some people. So Shita, can you talk a little bit more about why we didn't prioritize including MEV?
Yeah, sure. I actually like to take the example of putting icing on a cake. MEV today is considered as an extra source of revenue for many posers. And if you are a builder able to put blocks, you're gonna get included on chain, you're gonna earn a reward. If you have a block that is built with MEV, you will have also the MEV reward. So that makes your block more profitable. But if you're bad at building in itself, then you have no chance at being included on chain. So it's nice to have some icing on the cake, but it's useless if the cake is not good.
Absolutely. I think too, for us, it was the infrastructure that we've built has been like state-of-the-art mempool system, and we really wanted to see how it would behave. Like, could we win blocks without MEV? If we're outcompeting other blocks without MEV, what will happen when we include MEV?
Absolutely. I think what we can see today is that the relay market is dominated mainly by flashbots, and so it's quite hard to compete in this market. But seeing that Blocknative is able to lend some blocks on chain without MEV is a strong indicator of the performance of the infrastructure and a good sign of what it can be able to achieve once we start accepting bundles.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you also, so we've put a lot of intention around open sourcing the code, Dreamboat, and also making it completely distinct from the Flashbots code. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple concept, which is getting software diversity. If you want to make sure that resiliency is ensured at the network level, it's better to have at every level of the stack some diversity of software so that everybody is running the same code. Currently, it's not really the case because 93% of relays are running from the same code, which is Flashbots. As Flashbots open source its code to foster relay diversity, many people were able to fork it and run their own relay, which is great from a decentralization perspective, but it brings some potential vulnerabilities because if there is a code in Flashbot original implementation, and if it was forked without any modification, that one code can impact all, like the majority of relay. Well, except for Dreamboat-based relay like Blocknatives.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And why do you think it's important that we open source the code?
I mean, currently we're trying to build decentralized system. We're trying to prevent censorship. We're trying to be resilient and scalable. So open source is there by allowing multiple people everywhere in the world to review the code, get inspired from it to build more interesting tooling, and also just run their own instances. And this is how you create more I would say, security at a network level from a resiliency standpoint. So yeah, currently open sourcing should be the default status.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So we've launched our relay, we've open sourced the code, we're building profitable blocks that win. What's next on the roadmap?
I mean, that's a pretty good plan already.
It's true. It's true. I think we're pretty close to accepting bundles, correct?
Absolutely. So without committing to any hard deadline, the team is currently working very hard at supporting bundles in a way that would make the searcher experience, like frictionless. So yeah, so that's what's on the roadmap for Blocknative. And something else that we're also working on is a validator hub, with the hope that we can help validators in their day-to-day operation to get more insights on their performance, help with troubleshooting, and just their data to make decision making easier for them.
Love that. Cool. So that gives a little bit of background on what we're up to at Blocknative. And now I'd really like to dive in more on the article you just published on relay diversity and the limitations. And I think it's a fairly new concept for people. So I'd love to relate it back to something that we're all familiar with, which is client diversity. And you actually played a role in this client diversity with the merge. Can you talk to us a bit more about what you did and about the whole role of client diversity?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I contributed to that effort at my scale, which was as the PM of the Besu client, which is an Ethereum client, and a minority client. And so it was an interesting position to be in because, well, when you're a minority client, you don't get a lot of network share, but still you're, sorry, I'm distracted by your notifications.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. So the thing is, when you're minority client, you're still very much important to the ecosystem because you're in that diversification that I was talking about, meaning like, for example, if you have Git, which is a super majority execution client encountering an issue, well, that is going to impact the whole network of Ethereum, which is bad. And so having multiple clients that are being run by the community help mitigate that risk. The other thing is that innovation and good ideas can come from any team. And so it's interesting to have several brilliant teams working on the same roadmap and issues. To give you an example, the Besu team was actually the one that worked on 15.9, so EIP 1559, which was a big EIP from an economic standpoint for Ethereum, with all that burn the it initiative that people might recall. And so yeah, that was driven by the Besu team as well as the testing and all the testnet infrastructure behind it. So being able to split this type of load when it comes to R&D is very interesting, and this is why we should have more core teams working on different implementation of the same specification. And so that translates very well to other layers of the stack. So in the context that we are discussing today, that would be relays. And so what I'm seeing right now is, as we mentioned before, we have two different implementation of relay specific now. It's not enough, but most importantly, the proportion are not good, because if you have more than 90% of the relays running on one implementation, that's basically not going to help with mitigating that resiliency risk that I was mentioning before.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, if all relays rely on one source code and one bug hits the system, that would be really bad for the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, you can even have the case where, for example, validators not really knowing that subtlety and thinking they're running like flashbots plus another relay. That is also a fork of flashbots, and thinking they have a good fallback, actually being tricked by this. And that would mean that we can imagine that for several slots, no valid box would be able to get on chain. So that will not stop the network, but that will definitely look like a DOS attack.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting though, because to run your own relay, it's not inexpensive, correct?
No, it has an infrastructure cost plus a human cost. So currently, if you want to run your own relay, based on some estimates were done by Dan from Blocknative and posted on the Flashbots forum, it's around 60K per year. And you have to add on top of that the cost for the team handling that, maintaining the code, improving it, fixing the bugs, and the DevOps 24/7 watch in case there is an issue. Again, to put that into perspective, if tomorrow there is an issue with a Flashbot relay, that's more than 80% of the blocks going through MEV boost right now that are going to be impacted. And at the ETH network level, that will be more than 64 of all blocks. So yeah. you have to keep an eye on the relay.
Yeah, it's and then there's an entire trust component of the relay as well, where you have to deliver very valid blocks. Yeah, so it's expensive and requires all of that infrastructure. And it's interesting because Hasu recently said on Twitter, don't quote me, but I think around the lines of, it's a failure of the Ethereum ecosystem that 1 month after the merge, there is still no neutral relay. All the relays that exist are vertically integrated builder relays. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, he's right. Or she, actually, I don't know. But yeah, the idea is that currently, the idea is not to blame relays or what operators are doing. It's to look at the market condition. If today you run a relay, you have all the costs that you need to pay and you're making zero profit because there is no business model currently for relays. So what do? If you want to participate to Ethereum network diversity and run a relay, you have to support yourself or you have to find a way to turn a profit. Currently, if you want to turn a profit, you have to build blocks that are going to get on-chain by being selected by MEV boost and pushed by the proposer. And so what most relays ended up doing is having their own internal builders. They would relay the blocks to MEV boost and to the proposer, and they were making sort of indirectly money from that. And that's why we're seeing vertical integration. And that's why most relay need builders, because builders are doing the profit generation kind of for the relay. That's why we're seeing such a pairing happening right now. And it's bad for many reasons, but the first reason is relay neutrality. Again, put yourself in the shoes of relays. If the only way you're making money is by relaying blocks that can end up on chain, and if you're accepting blocks from other block builders, if those blocks get on chain, it means you're not getting paid. Incentive is completely messed up here, because your priority would be to get your block on chain to get the payment. So that means that relays are not neutral to all builders. They favor their own builder and not external builders.
Yeah, so basically relays having a business model.
They have zero business model and are expected to run critical infra that is reliable and secure 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the things they need to do is, deliver the block, but also they need to deliver that block in a super timely fashion. So like any instability is really critical.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the issues that we're seeing often with relays is timeout issues, because you have to be able to respond to the proposer pretty quickly. And you have a responsibility here, because if you mess up, that means that the proposer might lose the opportunity to propose a block in that slot, and slot, they don't come very often. So if you have this opportunity as a proposer and you miss it because of the relay, you're not going to be very happy about it.
Not going to be happy at all. That's for sure. And so in your piece, you talked a bit about Flashbots and the reasoning why they haven't really put a cost behind the relay. Could you go into that a little bit more?
I don't know their reasoning, honestly. I think it would be nice to discuss about that with them. But from the information that we have currently, the builders of Flashbots, so their internal builders, are not taking a profit, which on paper is pretty cool, and I don't think anyone would have suggested otherwise. Yeah. But the issue, and that's where it's interesting, is that it creates competitive market conditions, because other builders, they need to take a profit because they need to have a business model. That's how most things work in the world, in the real world, when you're not a public good. And so that de facto makes them less profitable than any blocks that could be built by a Flashbot builder, because MEV Boost is a very, but it's also very simple. It's just going to pick the most profitable block and push it to the proposer. So if regarding that criteria, you're not winning, that means that you're going to be eliminated at that stage of selection, and you're not even going to be proposed by MEV Boost to the proposer. And so that means that your inclusion rate is going to drop. So currently, taking a profit as a builder while competing against builders that are not taking a profit is making you less competitive and is reducing your inclusion rate.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, huge props to the Flashbots team for even getting MEV Boost out the door. They've done an incredible job enabling proposer-builder separation, which, as we know, was enabled by the merge, but isn't in protocol. So we needed some kind of workaround to do that. So it's been really exciting to see this entire ecosystem develop and come to life. And obviously we have a ways to go in figuring it all out. This is why we all talk and discuss these different things.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about are interesting problems to solve that are a mix of computer science, economics, and governance. So it's pretty cool. even to have the ability to discuss about that and actually take some decisions that are going to change things. I think the only urgency that I can see on this topic right now is the fact that since the merge, that trend has not improved, meaning that Flash both dominance not only is still confirmed, but might even be increasing. And so that is just a good sign to tell us we have to do something about it right now. Open sourcing and accepting external builders and all the efforts that both team made for the ecosystem to foster diversity and censorship and decentralization are not helping to achieve that target. Meaning they were a good step in that direction, but they're not enough. And so what can be done right now, and it's up to the whole community to think about that, not just Flashbots, what can be done right now to solve the situation that we are having on Ethereum? Because if we continue this way for the next couple of years, before even the relay role disappears and becomes in protocol, we're still gonna harm Ethereum network in itself. So yeah, we just need to consider these issues today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from a client diversity perspective, how was that solved?
That's a very good question. A lot of people tweeting relentlessly on Twitter. That was one thing. It was actually an interesting model. So we were not able to beat execution layer level. And I think it's because Get has been there for such a long time and is such a fundamental piece of that layer that shifting the habits of people to using other minority clients has become very difficult. So Get is still a super majority client. But on the other side, and that's why it gives me hope for the relays, the consensus layer is better balanced. And at some point, Prism had the super majority, but I think right now it's at around 40%, which is completely fine. It's a very decent percentage. And so now we are not in that sort of red area of how a super majority client getting an issue could affect the whole network. And so what we can learn from that is that if you take the problem early enough, and I think we are very early with relays, you can solve it. It's only been like a month or so since the merge, so we completely can work on reversing that trend, and I have full trust in the community to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's we're noticing these things early. We're open to discussion. I know at Blocknative, it's something that we're really passionate about is talking to people, understanding what the problems are, what are different solutions, and what's the best solution forward. And obviously, we'll continue growing and learning from everyone and all the different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My last question for you really is what are you excited about for the next months in terms of relays and the block building space?
As you mentioned, I published that article. I think what I would like to do in the next couple of weeks is continue that conversation with people that want to work on it and brainstorm on what could be done around relay incentivization. And then the other thing from a Blocknative perspective is supporting bundle and figuring out the searcher experience. And I guess something that is also just very interesting is all the work that can be done on the performance level. It might look less fancy, but it's actually optimizing and finding ways to be the best at building blocks, which is like the basic work, the most elementary piece of work that can be done on the block building side. That's something I'm very curious to see from an engineering perspective.
Yeah, it'll be really, really cool to see how the whole entire ecosystem evolves. So excited for that.
Yep.
Cool. So I don't know. So I've been trying to see if we have comments or anything that I need to answer, but I don't see anything right now. And I think we're good. Anything else you'd like to add, Sajida?
Yeah, I mean, for the people listening, any questions, please ask. Also note that everything that has to do with PBS, MEV, block building is very new, quite complicated. I've started to dive into this a little bit over a month ago, and it was kind of overwhelming at first. And so it's completely normal to have questions and to be hesitant to, just to ask questions. The more you discuss with people, the more it's gonna become clear. And it's, I feel like it's like a big puzzle. And so sometimes you see some pieces, but like you don't see how they all fit together. And that's why I hope that article would help get some understanding of what are the implications of some of the decisions that we made from a infrastructure perspective.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, we're on Discord, happy to help out. We're in there all the time. And really, we just want to make sure that the entire ecosystem is having this conversation and that we can enable that. So thanks, Sajida, for coming today and speaking. It was really, really great having you, and we'll see you all at the next community call.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks everyone.
Bye.